Hi everyone, I'm Claire Saffitz. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today I have a recipe that to me feels long overdue on the Dessert Person channel. It is a very classic tiramisu that's sort of most favorite of Italian desserts. The origins are very disputed. There's not kind of like one definitive version, so this is kind of mine, but I'm gonna make a ZABAGLIONE, which is this like cool egg mixture. It's gonna be super delicious, and coffee desserts are the best desserts. So it's time we make tiramisu. This is my, if you want a classic tiramisu, not a lot of additional bells and whistles. You want those flavors in there that's what you think of when you think of tiramisu. This is that version. I'm starting with a package of LADYFINGERS. Then for the filling, 4 large egg yolks, a half cup of, I'm using demerara sugar. You could use granulated. I have 1/3 cup of Marsala, a little bit of kosher salt, cup of heavy cream, 8 ounces of mascarpone cheese. Then for the LADYFINGERS, I have a cup of espresso that I just brewed and a couple tablespoons of demerara sugar for the soak. Then the finishing touch on top is I'm gonna do grated chocolate. You could do cocoa powder. So it's pretty straightforward. Oh, vanilla extract, I didn't mention that. That's gonna go in the filling. So special equipment. I have a large saucepan that I'm gonna use for the filling because the ZABAGLIONE is cooked over a water bath. Then I have a couple of bowls. I'm making an 8x8 sized tiramisu. So you'll need a shallow baking dish like this. It's easier if it's a square because it's easier to layer in the LADYFINGERS, but if you have something round, that's fine too. Okay, so step 1, I am going to combine my 2 tablespoons of sugar with the espresso. Now, very often you will find alcohol incorporated at this point. Sometimes it's rum, which can make a really boozy tiramisu, or a coffee liqueur, like a Kahlua or something. I don't really like a boozy version of this. So in this version, I'm doing Marsala incorporated into the ZABAGLIONE because that's the traditional ingredient, or a traditional ingredient for ZABAGLIONE. But I'm also going to cook the alcohol a little bit, so I just don't like the raw alcohol flavor in here. But if you do, you could add a little rum or coffee liqueur or anything you think would go well here. Anyway, so this is dissolved. I'm going to just set this aside. I'm gonna make my filling. I need the heavy cream and the mascarpone for the filling, but I'm gonna get these back in the fridge just so they're gonna be cold because I'm gonna whip them later. For making this mixture, this ZABAGLIONE, it is this whipped mixture of eggs and sugar and alcohol, this sort of liquid, which is usually alcohol. And it requires quite a bit of whisking. And we do this whole thing over the double boiler, so it helps to kind of cook the eggs, and it gets super frothy and light and then eventually thick. I'm using a hand mixer. You could absolutely do this with a large whisk, but it is the kind of thing where in a restaurant setting, or if you're a pastry chef, maybe you have a copper bowl and a really big balloon whisk and it happens pretty fast. But for my purposes and the size whisk that I have here, I'm gonna go hand mixer. But if you don't have that, just know it's gonna you're just gonna be there for a while and your arm's gonna get a little tired maybe. So actually the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to very slightly reduce my Marsala. So really, because I have not very much liquid and I have a large saucepan, this will be fast. And in the meantime, I'm gonna start to whisk my yolks and sugar in here. And this is one of those steps where you don't wanna leave this mixture here without mixing it, because there's a thing you'll hear in pastry where it's you're gonna burn the eggs if you mix it with sugar and you don't stir it and start to work it. And that burning just means you end up with these little hardened bits of yolk that will kind of never go away. So I'm gonna start to mix this. And this came up to a simmer. I can see that it's already a little reduced. It's looking a little bit syrupy. So I'm gonna turn it off. I'm not really like working air in it. I'm just getting this really, really well mixed. The sugar is starting to dissolve. It will take a while to dissolve because demerara has those large crystals, but I'm gonna add this liquid, this warm liquid, so that's gonna help. So I'm just gonna stream this in. Then I'm gonna add a little bit of vanilla extract. And now, I'm gonna pause just long enough to get some water in my saucepan for the water bath. Okay, so I want this water to come up to just under a simmer. So I'm gonna turn this heat up. The bowl's gonna go on top. And this process takes a while. This needs to warm up, and it's gonna get super thick and frothy, and so we're just gonna be here. This is why I'm using a hand mixer, because it's also very tall, and like that's not like ideal leverage for me. But this is gonna really transform. It's gonna gain in volume quite a bit. It's gonna thicken, it's gonna become moussey, and it's gonna start to hold its shape and like hold the marks of the whisk. So you can kind of keep your hand along the side. You don't want this water to fully boil because you'll end up like overcooking some egg around the edges. So you want to keep it moving the whole time. But fortunately I'm using induction, so I know exactly how hot this water is going to get. I'll probably be here for like 10 minutes. This is pretty much done, and I want to just say that I increased the speed over the first few minutes of beating it. I increased to high. So for the majority of the time I was beating it pretty vigorously. But see how it mounds up? You can see it's like incredibly light and moussey. It kind of sits on top of itself and makes that ribbon, but it's very, very slowly dissolves. So the thing is, it's really hot, and I want to now combine this with the rest of my filling ingredients, but I don't want to do it while it's hot. So I'm going to keep beating this now just to cool it down a little bit, and it's going to continue to thicken. So you can kind of keep your hand, you can periodically sort of touch the side of the bowl with your hand just to sort of feel how it's cooling down. But this is ZABAGLIONE, and this is unto itself a dessert. So it's like this can get spooned over fresh fruit. It can get served alongside a piece of cake. So I'm just continuing to beat this. This will take several minutes just to get it cooled down. So here is the ZABAGLIONE mixture. It's so luxurious and light. Now I'm going to finish putting together my filling. So I have my heavy cream. It's a cup each, heavy cream and mascarpone. And these are cold because we're going to whip these. And one thing I like about doing it this way and starting with, it doesn't really matter what you start with. You could have this whipped and ready to go in the fridge and do it in the reverse order. But either way, you don't have to clean the beaters of your mixer, if that's what you're using, or even your whisk. So just kind of makes it easy and seamless. So now I'm gonna whip my cream and my mascarpone together, and that's gonna make it easier to incorporate everything together into a smooth filling. So same thing here, I'm going to start kind of on like medium-low, so I don't splatter everywhere, and then increase the speed as it thickens. I want to get it to sort of between medium and stiff peaks. It's okay if you go closer to stiff peaks, you just don't want to overbeat it. Then it becomes grainy, and then your filling is just not going to have the texture you want it to have. But it should really hold its shape. Okay, this is done. So this is done. You can see, like, holds its shape, but it's not, it's still like, you can smooth it and shape it and everything. It's not like so stiff. So now we're going to incorporate these. I'm going to add the ZABAGLIONE to my cream mixture. So now this part's really fun and super beautiful. So it doesn't take a lot, and that folding mixture, make sure what you're doing is you're working with a large spatula and you're really trying to scrape along the side and bottom of the bowl, and then there's a kind of like lifting motion and a turn of the wrist where you're kind of bringing that mixture up to the surface and folding over and turning the bowl as you go. Otherwise you just end up turning the same part of the mixture the whole time. So this is nicely mixed. It's pretty uniform in color. There's maybe a streak or two, but that's fine. You want to rather really err on the side of less mixing instead of more. I want to taste it. Oh my God, it's so good. There is that slight acidity and complexity from the Marsala in the background, but it's like not boozy, which I really like. It's gonna make such a good tiramisu, and it's gonna go so well with the espresso soak. And now we have the filling done, the soak done. I'm ready to start assembling. This part's so fun. I'm really excited to assemble. I have a shallow plate/bowl for dipping. This is just really a plate that has high sides, but you want something where you can get the entire length of the ladyfinger in the vessel. So that's for dipping. And then I have my ladyfingers, my soak, and my filling, and that's what you need. So I have here an 8x8 pan. This one's a little bit small, and I didn't have a duplicate pan because I made one last night, so that's the one we're gonna taste. The one that I made last night is like a little on the big side. This one's a little on the small side. But there's some flexibility here because you just fit together the ladyfingers as best you can. So again, this is a 7-ounce package. I think it's somewhere like around 24 ladyfingers. These are the really dry, like crispy style ladyfinger. So they're gonna really pull that espresso soak in. So I just go for like a 1-second dip, like on each side. So I just kind of go like that, and then that's it. And then we're just gonna start with a layer of ladyfingers in the bottom. I put some plastic inside this pan, not because I'm gonna unmold it, but because I've put this aluminum pan in the dishwasher, and so it has a reactive like coating. So I just wanna make sure that there's no like transfer of flavors that way. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep going to do a layer of ladyfingers in the bottom. They soften quite a bit quickly too. So you want to kind of work with them and get them into the pan before they get too soft. And that's why the dunk is so quick. So here I have my first layer of ladyfingers. They look great. Now filling goes over top. I'm going to eyeball about half and scrape in half. Then favorite kitchen tool ever, small offset spatula. Just spread that around into an even layer. This is so forgiving. Anytime you're like assembling a dessert in a vessel and you're not unmolding it, it's like you can't really mess this up. Okay, now second layer of ladyfingers. You do want to make this in advance. If I haven't already mentioned that, let me say it now. This needs time to set up. So I did say that I made one last night. I feel like at least 12 hours in the fridge is what you want. And that filling really sets up. The ladyfingers soften and you get this really pleasant texture. I kind of want to apologize because I have been on record as saying that I don't really like tiramisu. But it was an important life lesson because actually what I realized is I love tiramisu because it's a coffee flavored dessert and it's like creamy and delicious, and how could that be bad? But the real answer is like, it's very often not very good. So I'd had versions that were like served really cold and were really boozy, and like the texture wasn't quite right. So that's my caveat, is that like it's such a popular dessert and there's like so many versions out there. I just hadn't really settled on what I thought was like a really good version. So this is what this is for me. But it is an amazing dessert and I regret saying that I didn't like it. Okay, so you can see it fits together really nicely. So I have a little bit of soak left over. I don't want to pour it over because you can't add too much liquid and it can get a little too soft. You know, you could reduce it down and turn it into like a little sauce for serving alongside, but I'm not going to pour it over because I think there's enough liquid in here. So now I want to follow up finally with the top layer of filling. All right, so then just spread this again in an even layer. All right. So good. So excited. This is ready to go in the fridge. I just want to put a piece of plastic over the surface so it doesn't form a skin and start to dry out or get any like off odors from the fridge. And then again, like I would say at least 12 hours in the fridge. So the ladyfingers really hydrate and the filling sets. And then I'm going to show you the one I made last night. The finishing touch of tiramisu is usually a sprinkle of cocoa or shaved chocolate. I'm going to do shaved chocolate. This part's really fun actually. I'm just going to grate it. So grating the block on my grater and just cover the whole surface. This is ready to taste. I'm so excited. You can see I have my plastic wrap here. I'm gonna cut a square. Ooh, it's very satisfying because I can feel it go through those ladyfingers. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. How am I gonna get the square out is a question. All right, looks pretty good. You can see that my ladyfingers are a little bit more spread out rather than like tightly packed because of the size. But honestly, for a first slice, it looks pretty good. All right, so now because I put it on, I plated it, might as well give it like a little extra chocolate on the plate. Okay, I'm so excited. It looks so good. So you have the nice distinct layers, the ladyfinger filling. It's nice and set, and I'm gonna try it. Yum. Spoon cuts through so easily. The Marsala, I think, is a really key ingredient. It does sort of cut through a lot of the richness. Adds like just like a hint of acidity. Obviously you have the tanginess of the mascarpone, but it just gives something different. It's like a different complex flavor. So light and airy, and the coffee. What's better than a coffee dessert? Truly nothing. I'm very glad we did tiramisu today. Long overdue in the channel. I will say, double this recipe, make it in a 9x13, and you have dessert for like a huge number of people. So perfect for the holidays if you have crowds around and like you want to put dessert out and it's not the standard like cookie fare. So great one for a lot of people. Again, you can do individually. So it's really hard to find a dessert that hits on this many levels and notes as tiramisu. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. We're gonna enjoy this one and the one in the fridge. So excited. Don't forget to like and subscribe.